Hi. Jerry actually made up the title of the talk, so I don't know why he doesn't remember it. It was the state of the spec, and and this is his email where he's asking me to do exactly that. But I would like to use the opportunity while I have your attention to talk about something else entirely just before I start talking about the state of the spec, and that is there is a lack of code of conduct in this conference. I know it's being worked on, and I think there's an update in the general meeting, yeah? But since I'm the first speaker, I'd like to just emphasize that I hope this is a harassment-free experience for everyone, regardless of gender, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, race, or religion. And just don't be jerks. Deliberate intimidation, stalking, or harassing photography, recording, inappropriate physical contact, unwelcome sexual attention are just not acceptable. And if you experience anything like that, please do find Jerry Leonidas or Jose Scalione and talk to them. I know from personal experience that they are good at listening and they care. And they will be able to help you. And if you're uncomfortable talking to them, then just try and find me, and I see if I can help you. But that's it about the code of conduct. And yes, now I'm going to speak about the state of the spec. It's very short. It's a warm-up to the day, and it's a bit of a reminder of what happened in the last year or two. When Jerry asked me if I could talk about the state of the spec, he obviously means the OpenType spec, I was just like, yeah. And then I was like, oh, actually, nothing really happened. Like 2 years ago, there was a big announcement about variable fonts being supported. And ever since, the spec didn't really change. There has been an update to, I think, version 1.8.3, but it's really just some tweaks in the wording and some clarification in there. So there's nothing big new. I don't have anything to say. So I'm going to talk about the lack of the progress instead. I talked to some smarter people than me, like Peter Constable and Beda Desvabot, and asked them, like, what did I miss? Is there anything I should talk about? And they were like, I don't know, nothing really happened. So they said, maybe talk about color fonts. And yeah, color fonts are finally getting some cross-platform usability. Apple is on the case. I think they have OT SVG support in beta, and the COLR table support. FreeType supports COLR and CPAL, I think. And that should come soonish in Chrome as well. Then they said maybe talk about the half-bus subsetter, nothing to do with OT spec really, but Adobe and Google are moving forward with half-bus subsetter, and I think there are some promising results so far. And then they were like, just, talk about variable fonts because that's what you're good at anyway. There's nothing new in the OT spec really. I think there has been some interest among font developers to have some further enhancements on variable fonts, but there hasn't been any significant progress that happened in that regard. I think platform vendors are just really focused on other things at the moment. There has been some discussion around user-perceived access and internal mechanical access, but I think this is mainly a cause for frustration. There's been some 2 proposals, I think, but again, no concrete discussion or action so far. Again, lack of progress. When I talked to John Hudson about this talk and what I should really be talking about, he was like, nothing new is happening. And I was like, yeah, I know. So he said, like, just talk about what's not happening. And this is not really happening. This is the repository for discussion and review of proposals for the registration of new access. And some people... Good morning. That's all right. Okay, and some people actually put some proposals forward that are really interesting, but there's no discussion happening. There's a panel behind that should be discussing this and asking the people who propose these things some important questions before we register new access. But the discussion is really stalled, and I don't know exactly why. I think it's a mix of it not being a priority for many people that are on the panel, and maybe a lack of demos as well. But yeah, this repo is about ensuring that registered access will be beneficial for the use in fonts and text layout applications, and we want to ensure that we don't duplicate any other registered access, and we want to make sure that there's a valid reason for treating this as a registered access rather than a custom one, and we want to make sure that there's clear documentation of how the access is meant to be used. Yeah, this is what it looks like. You can go there, and if you have a nice proposal for your access, you can put it there. But again, I think the whole format needs to be rethought from the panel as well. Yeah, so if nothing is happening, I don't really know what to talk about. So I thought I'd just take a step back and remind everyone what has been happening in the last couple of years, because if you're anything like me, you live in your little bubble and you absorb information, and in the end of 2 years, you're like nothing is new, but actually that's not true. So let's have a look. What are we dealing with? I'm going to talk about fonts, about variable fonts especially, and I was crunching some numbers and made some nice little graphics. We have about just over 80 variable fonts at the moment. I found the release dates of 60 of them and made this little graph. So you can see that since the announcement in September 2016, we got more and more. I think there's like this little dent in the middle where we had more tools support making variable fonts. So that was nice. This data is based on Indra Kupferschmidt's spreadsheet, and she asked me to say that she didn't really take care of it that much recently, so the whole flat bit on the end might actually not be that flat. Yeah, so we have about 80 variable fonts. Most of them have 1 or 2 axes. There are some with more, but not that many. There are some extreme cases down here with like 15 axes. We all know whose that is. And the most popular or the most common axes are weight and width, obviously. Everyone likes that. Slant and optical size is really important too. This chart only shows the ones that are used in more than one font. So there are like obviously experimental fonts out there with custom axes that are just unique to that one font, and I didn't list them. Licensing is a big question mark still. Most of the variable fonts out there are available for purchase. Some of them are Libre. I think this is mainly due to like most of them being really experimental, and people just like put them out there and say like do what you want with it. Some of them are free because, well, Bruno, okay. Bruno is here, but I'm going to say it anyway. Dalton Mark is releasing a font for free just because I think we couldn't agree on the price tag we wanted to put on it. So there's that. There are some system fonts as well, of course. From the ones that are available for purchase, most of them are bundled together with static fonts. So if you want to buy them, you need to buy the whole family of static fonts, and then you get the variable font for free. Some of them I really couldn't find out the information about the licensing. And all the ones that are in the part about subscription are from DJR's Font of the Month club. He's really busy with that. And I think only Zeitung is individually available. You can buy the variable font on its own from Underwear. Yeah, where can I use variable fonts? That's the really good news. Variable fonts are supported in all major operating systems, which is great. Not Linux, though. Variable fonts are supported in all major web browsers since last week. This is really good news. And, well, variable fonts are supported in some few applications, markedly Illustrator and Photoshop. I think it's planned for InDesign and Quark Express. I haven't heard anything from Windows Office, though. If you want to keep updated, you can go about the web browsers. You can go to Can I Use and look for variable fonts, or you can try the beta site of Nick Sherman's vfonts.com, and you can find it there as well. I had a look at what tools people have available to develop variable fonts. There are tutorials on the websites of your favorite font editors, of course. You have FontLab 6 with variable font support, and Glyphs has a little tutorial as well, and so does RoboFont. If you want to start completely from scratch, there's this really nice tutorial by Irini Vlachou. It's really extensive. She's talking about everything in detail, and you can scroll through. It's like a really nice step-by-step one with all the links to further information as well. You can understand how to do alternates, for example. Other tools that are out there, one I really, really like is Wenting's Font Playground. It's really a nice place to experiment with layouts using variable fonts, and you can just use this little 2D panel on the right-hand side to change the axis, or you can delete all that crap and just make your own layout. You have different options there. You can use the sliders. You can change obviously you can change the text. You can use the sliders. Yeah, I should have really sped that up. You can use those little handles as well. Oh, make it a little bit more narrow. Increase the font size. You can add some more text to it if you want to have a second line. There you go. Oops. The good thing about the Font Playground is that once you're done with your layer, you're really, really happy about it. You can go to the tab on the top where you can find the code and copy it and use it just like that. Oh, I did a little bit too much fine-tuning there. If you accuse me of sexism, this is actually from Nick Sherman's Flickr. Yeah, that's the code. So yeah, that's a really nice website. There's also Rule Niesken's WalkMyF fondue, which is a pun to what can my font do. And you can drop your variable font in there and then get a little overview of languages supported layout features, who did it, and when. You can test the font a little bit and see what it looks like. And of course, you have more sliders because people love sliders when it comes to variable fonts. You can make things, yeah, you can manipulate all the axes. Again, you have the code right underneath. All the instances, which in this case are, I think, 25. Yeah. And the features, and then you have like an overview of the character set as well. Again, you can play around with the sliders to your favorite instance, and then have a look what's supported. Lots of numerals in this font. Also some rather useless characters, like that one. Yeah, you can download the CSS. Really good tool as well. From the next version of Firefox onwards, but already available in Firefox Nightly, you have this nice little option where this is a variable font, it's Mutated Sans. You can inspect your element, find the fonts panel, and again, have sliders and play around there. So pretty. You can do that with all kinds of variable fonts that are on your site. I think the other one is Sans Pro. Of course, it works with that one as well. So yeah, we do have variable fonts, and we do have variable font support. So what are we doing with it? Let's talk a little bit about the adoption. So we had some early adopters, like the ampersand website that I just showed, who's using source sans and mutator sans. Richard Rutter, who did the website, also wrote a little Medium article about his experience implementing variable fonts. That was back in January, I think, and should be outdated now. But yeah, have a look anyway. He talks a little bit about his struggles. The other one is Jason. I saw Jason, but there he is. Jason's website. It uses Rossendale and Meta, and it works really well as well. And you get like this nice little window on the side and says like, "Congratulations, you can see variable fonts." A really nice experiments from Andrew Johnson in AR, like this one where he's taking CJ Dunn's Louvet typeface, which is about to be released, I think, and he's playing around with the with the grade axis based on the distance to the type. Another one is here, he's using Venn, and he's looking on how we can improve readability at wide viewing angles. So you can see on the top one, it's a static font, and on the bottom one, it's one that changes its width, so it's readable at a steeper angle. Sweet. He also did some experiments with tangible controls, so manipulating type with physical controls, which is really fun as well. This is using mutator sans again. You should really follow that guy. Manny Michael did a really fun one. I think I saw it last week for the first time. So you're scrolling, and then James Edmondson's chi comes in, and it has a gravity axis, so it changes while you're scrolling. Really fun as well. And Isabella Leah, she's a creative resident at Adobe, did a font that is responsive to sounds, which is really fun as well. And that is about it. So yeah, in short, there's nothing to talk about apart from everything that's there to talk about. So I think people are getting busy making experience with variable fonts. I think it's in the last 2 years, we saw like a little shift of more collaboration between designers and developers, which is really interesting. So this is really welcome and nice to see, and I hope this will just continue that way and everyone is curious on both sides. And that's it. Thanks.